Hello, I'm Jeff Van Treese, and this is Mobilized News. We welcome you to our show. As our guest today is Howard Bloom. Howard, we're very thrilled to have you back on. He is an author of multiple books. He was the publicist to the Stars from in the 70s and 80s, representing such names as Michael Jackson, Barbara Streisand, and many others. And also, he is a scientific educator and communicator and futurist who has taken a lot of interest in space travel and potential frontiers of science. And the Howard Bloom Institute, which he founded, focuses a lot on that. He's written many books, including the book right behind him. We can see part of it. It says Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me. He's also written The Lucifer Principle and many other books on popular science. So, Howard, thank you so much for joining us today. And I should say we're going to be discussing the recent nuclear reaction breakthrough, which is really exciting stuff for us to talk about. So thank you so much for coming on our show again.
Well, Jeff, it's a pleasure. Let me just correct something here. I'm allegedly an original scientific thinker. I propose a whole bunch of ideas that people haven't thought of or thought of in quite the same way, and they all come under the rubric of the grand unified theory of everything in the universe, including sex, violence, and the human soul, which I've been pursuing since I was 12 years old, because I started at 10 in microphysics and or microbiology and theoretical physics. And this is relevant to the question of fusion for a very simple reason. At one point, I was schlepped off to the University of Buffalo, my local hometown university, to have a meeting with the head of the graduate physics department. Again, I was 12 years old at the time. And guess what they were working on at the University of Buffalo? They were working on fusion. My impression was that they had a tokamak collider. I could be very wrong about that. But one way or the other, fusion, the joke about fusion is that it's always just 10 years away, even 10 years from now. So it's been just 10 years away for 70 years, as Science Magazine, the queen of the science journals, puts it. And the remarkable thing that just happened is that for the first time, the scientists at Lawrence Livermore in Livermore, California, poured laser energy from roughly 17 very high-powered lasers onto a tiny pellet. They poured in 2.05 megajoules of laser power, and they got out 3.15 megajoules of energy. Now, there are all kinds of caveats about this, but people are very excited nonetheless, because it is the first time that for the energy you've put in to a fusion reaction, you've gotten more energy out. And what is a fusion reaction? In nuclear bombs and in nuclear reactors, we break atomic nuclei apart. That's fission, taking things apart. And then we get the energy that results from yanking these things, prying these things away from each other, the elements, that is, that constitute a nucleus. But in fusion, we jam two things together. And by jamming atoms together, we also get very substantial amounts of energy. And all of this goes back to the 1930s, when Einstein's theories of relativity and work on subatomic particles had impelled a whole mess of scientists to start studying what we now call nuclear physics, the physics of the nuclei of atoms. So this is the culmination, but it's not the culmination. It's the culmination of a long process, as I said, 70 years, but it's just the beginning. And it's just the beginning because this is not practical. The amount of machinery, the amount of people power that went into this, the amount of energy that went into producing those laser beams was gargantuan. The cost was enormous. This is not the beginning of nuclear fusion. It's the beginning in spirit to nuclear fusion, but in reality, over the past 10 years, a bunch of nuclear fusion commercial companies have been established. In fact, Harry Hamlin, the actor, whose father was an Apollo rocket scientist, and who comes from a long line of scientists. Harry Hamlin in 1998 started one of those commercial companies, and it's had several breakthroughs, one of those commercial fusion companies. I founded and run a group called the Space Development Steering Committee. In that group were a bunch of people who know their stuff about nuclear fusion. And they basically say it's not from this experiment that you're going to see nuclear fusion become practical. It's from the much smaller approaches, the much more practical approaches that are being pursued by these private fusion energy companies.